Marcus Raines always opened his shop before sunrise. The city of New Dakar was quieter then, before the street vendors powered up their hover stalls and the air filled with the buzz of delivery drones. In those early hours, the neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, and the scent of roasted cassava mixed with ionized dust from the skyways. It was the rhythm of the city he loved, chaotic but alive, a melody of survival. That's when he first saw the boy, a small figure with grayish-blue skin and wide, luminous eyes, sweeping the dust from Marcus's doorstep with a broom that looked older than both of them. The boy didn't glance up when Marcus stepped out. His movements were careful, almost ritualistic. "Hey, kid," Marcus said, voice rough from too little sleep. "You don't need to do that." The boy paused, then bowed slightly, his voice soft but firm. "It's okay, sir. I like to keep things clean." Marcus frowned. "You working for tips?" "'Cause I don't have much, but I can spare a few credits." The boy's long fingers gripped the broom tighter. "No tips," he said. "If you have old batteries or metal I can trade." Marcus blinked. "Batteries?" "For my sister," the boy added quickly, as if afraid to explain too much. "She needs energy cells for her medicine machine." There was something in the way he said it. Humble, desperate, but proud. Marcus had seen that same look before in kids back on Earth's old streets. It was the look of someone trying to survive without losing their dignity. "All right," Marcus said, leaning against the doorframe. "What's your name, kid?" "Tallow," he answered. "Marcus," he replied. "You do this every day?" "Yes, sir. You drop small pieces sometimes." Tallow pointed to a corner where a broken drone coil lay half buried in dust. "You fix things." "I fix what you drop." Marcus laughed under his breath. "Fair enough." The boy nodded once, then continued sweeping. When he finished, he bowed again and left without another word, carrying the broken coil like treasure. For a while, Marcus watched him disappear into the maze of alleys beyond the market. Something about that kid lingered in his thoughts. How quiet he was, how his voice trembled just enough to show fear, but his hands didn't stop moving. The next morning, the boy came again, and the next. Always sweeping, always asking for scraps. Marcus started leaving small pieces of metal by the door, old conductors, rusted chips, even a cracked plasma cell once. Every time the boy's eyes lit up like twin moons. Marcus found himself looking forward to those mornings. There was a peace in watching someone so determined in a world that didn't care much for determination. Still, questions burned in his mind. Why was an alien boy working in the human district? Why risk his life for scraps? What kind of medicine needed batteries? He caught himself staring through the shop window one afternoon, wondering if he should follow the kid next time, just to make sure he wasn't in trouble. But something held him back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the unspoken rule in New Dakar. Don't get involved unless you're ready to carry the weight. That night, Marcus closed up shop late. The streets hummed with energy, vendors shouting, kids chasing drones, music pulsing from corner speakers. He saw the boy again across the street, under a flickering sign. Tallow was counting a few rusted chips in his palm, then slipping them into a small pouch. Marcus looked away. He told himself it wasn't his business, but deep down he already knew this was how stories began. Not with grand gestures or cosmic wars, but with small moments, a broom, a doorstep, a boy, and a man who couldn't stop wondering why. Stay tuned, and if you believe that small kindness can change worlds, subscribe and join us for the next part of this story. New Dakar was never silent for long, and by mid-morning, the city pulsed with life. Steam rising from food stalls, engines humming through narrow alleys, and voices mixing in 1,000 different tongues. From his workshop window, Marcus could see the sprawl of neon towers bending over the market streets, their reflections rippling across puddles from the dawn rain. The city looked alive, like it breathed through its people. He stepped outside, brushing the dust from his sleeves. The smell of fried plantains drifted from a nearby stall, where Mama Lyra, wrapped in a patterned shawl that shimmered with embedded light threads, waved him over. "Morning, baby," she said, her voice warm and smoky. "You working too hard again?" "Trying not to," Marcus replied, "but you know how these machines are." "They break faster than they pay," she laughed, a deep rolling sound that always reminded him of home. "Then maybe you're fixing the wrong kind of machine," he smiled. "Maybe." He bought a cup of her spiced coffee and watched the crowd. Human and alien faces moved together shoulder to shoulder. A group of young Karani women bartered with a human vendor over woven circuit fabrics. Two men argued in low tones over the price of drone parts. And through it all, a rhythm of drums echoed from somewhere down the street, a heartbeat for the city. "Hey, Lyra," Marcus said. "You ever see that little Karani kid around here? The one who cleans my shop every morning?" Mama Lyra frowned thoughtfully. "Small one, big eyes." "That's him." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I've seen him. Comes through early before the patrols roll out. Doesn't bother anyone. You know anything about him?" She shook her head. "Only that he's one of the lucky ones. Got someone waiting for him. Most of those kids don't." Marcus sipped his coffee, staring at the market crowd. The mention of patrols made his stomach tighten. The human districts weren't friendly to unregistered aliens. The government said it was about safety. Everyone knew it was about control. Zeke arrived not long after, his cargo jacket streaked with grease and his smile as easy as always. "Marcus Raines, the man who fixes what the world breaks," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You hear about the new tariff on alien goods. It's a mess." "I try not to listen to the news," Marcus muttered. "Good. It'll only make you mad." Zeke leaned closer. "You seen the kid again?" "Yeah, he's still out there sweeping." Zeke's grin faded. "Careful, brother. Those patrols don't like humans getting too cozy with the other side. They'll call it interference." Marcus gave a dry chuckle. "Interference for giving a kid some junk parts. You'd be surprised what counts as a crime these days." They fell into silence, listening to the hum of the street. Somewhere nearby, a preacher shouted about unity and freedom while drones circled above, scanning faces. "Funny thing," Marcus said finally. "That boy asked for batteries, not money. Said it was for his sister's medicine machine." Mama Lyra's eyes softened. "Then you know what that means. He's desperate. They all are. The clinics charge aliens triple, if they even let them in." Marcus looked down the street, where Tarlo had vanished hours before. The kid couldn't have been more than 10, maybe 12, too young to carry that kind of burden. "You can't save everybody," Zeke said gently. "I'm not trying to save everybody," Marcus replied. "Just one." Zeke studied him for a moment, then nodded. "That's how it always starts." As the day faded, the neon lights flared back to life, painting the streets in pink and gold. The drums picked up again, louder now, their rhythm echoing off the metal towers. Marcus turned back toward his shop, feeling the weight of something he didn't yet understand pressing against his chest. He didn't know it yet, but the city was watching. And in New Dakar, nothing stayed hidden for long. The following night, the city was restless. A storm of glowing dust swept through New Dakar, scattering light across the skyline. Marcus couldn't sleep. The hum of distant engines and the rhythm of rain against the window mixed with the thought that had been haunting him all day. Why was that boy really out there? He closed the shop early and watched the streets from his balcony. The lamps flickered, painting long shadows over the market. He saw no sign of Tallow, but he knew the boy would appear eventually. He always did. When Tallow arrived, sweeping quietly under the soft drizzle, Marcus decided. He pulled up his hood and followed. The boy moved fast through narrow streets, slipping between crowds and under half-lit signs. He crossed from the human district into the old quarter where the neon dimmed and the walls told stories in graffiti. Marcus stayed close enough to keep him in sight, but far enough not to be noticed. Finally, Tallow ducked into an alley. A faint glow pulsed from within, green and sickly. Marcus hesitated, then stepped closer. He heard voices. 2 cells. That's all I got left, a man said, his tone sharp and weary. That's enough, Tallow replied. Please, I'll bring more metal tomorrow. Marcus leaned against the wall, heart pounding. He peeked around the corner. The man was human, old, with cybernetic arms and a face lined by hard years. Talo handed him a handful of broken chips and wires. In return, the man gave him a small vial glowing faint blue. "Don't spill it," the man warned. "This batch ain't pure." "Might burn the filters if she's too weak." "She's strong," Talo said quietly. "She'll be fine." Marcus's stomach turned. The boy wasn't scavenging for himself. He was buying medicine, or something close to it, from the black market. When Talo left, Marcus followed again, this time more carefully. The boy crossed a bridge overlooking the lower sectors, where smoke from engine vents drifted like ghosts. He moved through a maze of metal shacks and ducked inside a small one patched with old solar panels. Marcus waited, then crept closer. Through a crack in the wall he saw her, a Kirani girl younger than Talo lying on a thin mat surrounded by flickering lights from a makeshift medical unit. Her skin shimmered faintly, veins glowing beneath the surface. Each breath looked like it cost her a fight. Talo knelt beside her, whispering something Marcus couldn't hear. He poured the glowing serum into a small tube connected to the machine. The device hissed and coughed before releasing a faint hum. The girl's chest rose, steadier than before. Talo smiled, small, tired but real. Marcus stepped back, a weight pressing against his chest. He wanted to knock to offer help, but something stopped him. Pride, respect, maybe guilt. He'd seen poverty before, but watching a child carry the world on his back was different. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Not in a world with flying cars and quantum medicine. On the walk home, Marcus couldn't shake the image of the girl's faint breathing. The rain had turned heavier, washing neon colors into rivers of light on the street. He remembered Talo's voice. "She needs energy cells for her medicine machine." He hadn't been lying. He entered his workshop and sat in silence. Around him, shelves of broken tech glimmered in the dim light. Things people threw away without a thought. Maybe, just maybe, some of it could be used to build something better. Marcus whispered to himself, "No kid should have to fight this hard just to keep someone alive." Outside, the storm eased, leaving the air cool and sharp. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat started, faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat in the dark. Marcus listened, jaw tight. He didn't know what he would do next, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't ignore that sound anymore. The next morning, Marcus sat in his workshop surrounded by piles of discarded parts, his mind still echoing with the image of Talo's sister breathing through that failing machine. He hadn't slept. The storm had passed, leaving behind a strange quiet in New Dakar, the kind that makes a man notice the sound of his own thoughts. He turned over an old med unit he'd repaired months ago, a portable field model used by soldiers. The diagnostic screen still flickered weakly. Its core was dead, but the frame was solid. If he could rebuild the generator and reprogram the unit's chemistry filters, it might just synthesize the serum Talo's sister needed. He didn't owe them anything. He kept telling himself that. But that logic dissolved every time he remembered Talo's small hands, shaking while pouring that glowing medicine into the tube. The shop door chimed. Marcus looked up as Mama Lyra stepped in, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. "You look like a man arguing with himself," she said. He sighed. "I might be." "You ever see a Kirani girl around here?" "Maybe 12 years old, sickly?" Mama Lyra's face softened. "So you found the boy's secret." "You knew?" She nodded slowly. "Word travels fast, baby. That child's been fighting to keep his sister alive since their parents were taken off-world. He cleans, trades, fixes what he can. Nobody helps because it's illegal now to share human medical tech with Kirani. The law don't care who's dying." Marcus clenched his jaw. "That law's garbage." "Then break it," she said simply. He looked at her, startled. Mama Lyra's gaze was steady. "You think the ancestors waited for permission to do right? Sometimes mercy don't need a license." Her words cut deep. Marcus turned to the med unit again. "If I do this, and they find out, you'll lose your shop. Maybe your permit, maybe more." He nodded. "That's what I thought." She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "You always say machines tell the truth, Marcus. What's this one telling you right now?" He looked down at the dusty med unit, the hum of its broken circuits faint like a heartbeat fading away. It's saying someone still has a chance. Mama Lyra smiled faintly. Then you already made your choice. When she left, Marcus went to work. The hours bled together. He stripped old drones for power cells, reprogrammed cooling filters, even pulled parts from his own equipment. Sweat stung his eyes, and his hands trembled with exhaustion. But every spark that flared reminded him of Talo's sister gasping for air. At one point, Zeke showed up, knocking on the metal door. "Man, you're ghosting everybody. You good?" Marcus barely looked up. "Busy." Zeke peered inside, spotting the med unit. "You're not... Marcus, you're not serious." "I am." Zeke stepped closer. "You know what they'll do if they catch you. They'll strip your citizenship, maybe deport you to the mining colonies. You can't fix this world by breaking it." Marcus turned to him, eyes fierce. "Then maybe the world needs breaking." Zeke stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled. "You sound like my grandma." "Then she was a wise woman." Zeke shook his head, but smiled weakly. "You're going to need a stronger battery if you plan to run that unit. I got one in my ship. I'll bring it tonight." Marcus froze. "Tayut, help me." Zeke shrugged. "Don't read too much into it, just hate seeing kids die slow." As night fell, the med unit hummed for the first time in years, a soft blue glow washing over the cluttered shop. Marcus stared at it, weary but alive with purpose. He whispered to himself, "You're going to make it, kid." "I promise." And somewhere out there, under the same dim stars, a boy named Talo looked up at the sky, unaware that a human had just decided to risk everything for him. Word traveled through New Dakar like wind through metal corridors. Marcus didn't tell anyone what he was doing, but somehow the people who mattered already knew. By the time the suns rose again, neighbors were stopping by his shop with quiet nods and small offerings, old batteries, scraps of wire, half-dead capacitors. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. Mama Lyra arrived first, balancing a basket on her hip. "Found these behind the market," she said. "They'll still hold a charge if you treat them gentle." Marcus smiled. "You don't have to keep bringing me things." She looked him dead in the eye. "And you don't have to fix what the law broke, but here we are." A little later, Zeke showed up, carrying a heavy power core. "Pulled this from my ship," he said, grinning. "Don't tell customs." "You're sure about this?" Marcus asked. "If they trace it?" "They won't," Zeke cut in. "Besides, a good pilot knows when to fly under the radar." Marcus laughed quietly. For the first time in weeks, the air inside the shop felt lighter. The hum of the machines wasn't just electricity anymore. It was community, alive and beating. When Talo appeared that evening, eyes wide as always, Marcus motioned for him to come inside. The boy hesitated. "I didn't sweep today," he said softly. "Forget the sweeping," Marcus replied. "I need your help." Talo's eyes flickered with surprise. "My help?" "Yeah. You know that medicine machine your sister uses?" Marcus pointed toward the humming med unit on his workbench. "I'm trying to make a better one, but I don't know how her current setup works. You do." For a long moment, the boy said nothing. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. "You're not supposed to help us," he whispered. Marcus's voice softened. "Maybe not. But sometimes rules don't keep people alive. People do." That broke the silence between them. For hours, they worked side by side, the boy explaining the flow regulators and filters as best he could. His hands moved fast, guided by memory and necessity. Marcus filled in the gaps with his knowledge, connecting human circuitry with alien biology, a bridge that wasn't supposed to exist. By midnight, the prototype was stable. The machine pulsed with a soft blue rhythm that matched the heartbeat Marcus could feel in his chest. "Will it work?" Talo asked. "I think so," Marcus said. "But it'll need a test." Talo lowered his head, uncertainty flickering across his face. "If the patrols find you helping us—" "I've been found before," Marcus said quietly. "I'm still here." The boy looked at him, and for the first time, his small, tired smile returned. "Thank you." After Talo left, Marcus stood outside his shop, staring up at the twin moons. The night was alive with the sound of drums, real ones this time. Down the block, a group of street performers played a rhythm older than the city itself, echoing through the alleys. Mama Lyra joined him, arms folded. "You hear that?" she said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, it's beautiful." "That's what resistance sounds like," she replied. "Don't ever forget it." Her words lingered in his mind as he locked up the shop. For years, Marcus had believed technology was his only language, the way he contributed to the world. But now he understood that community was the real invention, the one that kept humanity alive when laws tried to break it. He looked back one last time at the glowing med unit inside the workshop. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was proof. Proof that kindness could be engineered and hope could be built from scraps. Tomorrow would bring danger, maybe worse. But tonight, New Dakar was breathing together, one beat at a time. By dawn, the first light of Erebus's twin suns crept across New Dakar, tinting the skyline gold and violet. Marcus hadn't slept. The med unit sat on the workbench, pulsing faintly, alive and waiting. He stared at it like a man looking at both salvation and trouble in the same form. When Talo arrived that morning, he looked more exhausted than ever, his clothes damp from the early mist. "She got worse last night," he said quietly. "The old machine keeps shutting down." Marcus nodded. "Then it's time." They carried the new unit through narrow streets, weaving past vendors setting up their stalls. No one asked questions. The city seemed to understand when silence was safer than words. The shack where Talo and his sister lived was smaller than Marcus remembered. Inside, the air was thick with heat and the sharp smell of malfunctioning circuitry. The girl, Sierra, lay curled beneath a thin blanket, her breathing shallow, her skin glowing faintly blue. She looked fragile enough to break under a whisper. Talo knelt beside her. "Sierra," he murmured, "this is Marcus. He made a better machine for you." Her eyes flickered open, unfocused. "Human," she whispered. Marcus smiled faintly. "Yeah. But don't hold that against me." Her lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "It's warm," she said weakly, touching the med unit's casing. "It will be," Marcus replied. He connected the tubes carefully, steadying his shaking hands. Each sound, the hiss of air, the click of clamps, echoed like a heartbeat. The unit came to life, releasing a low hum. Blue light filled the room, soft and steady. Within moments, Sierra's breathing deepened. The glow beneath her skin faded to a gentler hue. Talo's eyes widened, and for the first time since Marcus had met him, he laughed. A small, bright sound that didn't belong to a child who'd seen too much pain. "It's working," he said. "It's really working." Marcus felt something inside him loosen, like a knot untied. "Keep her on it for the next few hours," he said, voice steady but low. "The serum will balance her system. After that, we'll see." Talo turned to him. "How do I repay you?" "You don't," Marcus said simply. "You just keep her alive." The boy nodded, tears streaking his grey-blue cheeks. "I won't forget." Marcus stood for a long moment, watching the soft rise and fall of Sierra's breathing. Then he stepped outside, the air heavy with heat and dust. The city around him was waking up, vendors shouting, children running, the world moving as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had. He walked toward Mama Lyra's stall, where the morning crowd was already forming. She saw him coming and raised an eyebrow. "You did it, didn't you?" "She's breathing easier," Marcus said. "The unit's stable." Mama Lyra's smile carried both pride and warning. "Then you best stay careful. The patrol's been nosing around the district again, asking about unsanctioned tech work." "Let them ask," Marcus replied. "They won't find anything." Lyra's gaze softened. "Child, the system always finds something when it wants to. Don't get caught doing the right thing." Her words lingered as Marcus walked back to his shop. He tried to shake them off, but deep down he knew she was right. In New Dakar, mercy had a price. Still, as he reached the door, he heard laughter echoing faintly from down the block, Talo's laughter light and free, and in that sound, Marcus found something worth any cost. He looked at the sky, streaked with gold and shadow, and whispered, "Let them come." For the first time in years he felt peace. Not the kind that comes from safety, but the kind born from doing something that mattered. For 2 quiet days, New Dakar felt lighter. Sira's health had improved, and Talo came by the shop carrying the kind of smile Marcus hadn't seen before, one free of fear. Marcus fixed drones, cleaned circuits, and for a fleeting moment believed things might stay that way. But peace in New Dakar never lasted long. It began with the sound of engines overhead, low, mechanical, and wrong. The kind that made people stop talking mid-sentence. Patrol skiffs. Marcus froze when the first one passed over his shop, its spotlight slicing across the cracked roof. His stomach tightened. He walked outside. Down the street, 2 officers in black armor questioned vendors, scanning faces with retinal readers. The crowd had gone silent. Even the hum of the city seemed to fade. Mama Lira met his eyes from across her stall. She didn't speak, but her look said everything. They know. Marcus turned, locking the shop door with trembling hands. Zeke burst through the back entrance a moment later, out of breath. "They're raiding the lower blocks," he hissed. "Someone tipped them off about an unlicensed med unit." Marcus's pulse hammered in his ears. "They're looking for me." Zeke nodded grimly. "And they'll find you if you stay." "I can't leave. The machine's still running at Talo's place. If they find it, they'll seize it." "And the kids?" Marcus felt the world tilt, like gravity itself had turned cruel. "I have to warn them." Zeke grabbed his shoulder. "If you go out there, you'll lead the patrols straight to them. Think." For a long moment, Marcus stood still, jaw clenched. The idea of doing nothing burned more than the fear of getting caught. "Then I'll move the med unit tonight, after curfew." Zeke exhaled. "You're insane." "Maybe, but I made a promise." By dusk, the district was crawling with patrols. They sealed off streets, posted drones at intersections, and announced curfews through static-filled loudspeakers. The law called it a health safety measure. Everyone else knew it was control wrapped in politeness. Marcus spent the evening pretending to work while keeping one eye on the window. The glow of the patrol lights painted the market in cold red streaks. A few vendors stayed open out of defiance, Lyra among them, handing out bread like it was a declaration of freedom. Then the inevitable came. Heavy boots stopped at Marcus's door. A knock, sharp, official, final. "Open up," a voice barked. Marcus swallowed hard. 1 minute. He looked around, scanning for anything incriminating. The schematics, the spare components. He shoved them into a crate and slid it beneath the counter. His hands trembled as he unlocked the door. 2 officers entered, helmets reflecting the light from the shop's lamps. "Marcus Rains," one said, scanning a datapad. "You're under inspection for unauthorized technology distribution. Step aside." Marcus forced calm into his voice. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix what's broken." The officer smirked. "That's what they all say." They swept through the room, scanning shelves and drawers. Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his throat. One of them paused near the counter. "What's this crate?" "Scrap," Marcus said too quickly. The officer crouched, starting to lift the lid. Then a crash sounded outside. The unmistakable clatter of falling metal. A vendor shouting. A crowd scattering. The officers turned toward the noise. "Stay here," one ordered. Then both rushed out, weapons drawn. Marcus stood frozen. He knew that voice. The shout had come from Zeke. He stepped outside just long enough to see Zeke's hovercart tipped over, parts scattered across the street. The officers were already chasing him down the alley. Marcus understood instantly. Zeke had done it on purpose. Mama Lyra's voice carried through the night, low but urgent. "Go, Marcus, now!" He didn't hesitate. He ran. The hum of patrol lights followed him down the block, but in that moment, all he could think about was keeping a promise, and the faint hope that mercy could still outrun the law. Marcus didn't stop running until the lights of the patrols faded behind him. His lungs burned, and every muscle screamed, but he couldn't turn back. New Dakar's alleys twisted like veins, alive, pulsing with danger and whispers. Somewhere behind him, Zeke's shout echoed once, then silence. Marcus forced himself not to think about what that silence meant. He ducked into a narrow passage behind an abandoned foundry, the air thick with the smell of rust and ozone. A dim blue glow flickered under a metal door. He hesitated before knocking twice, then once more. The door creaked open. Mama Lyra stood there, eyes hard but calm. "You took long enough." "You knew I'd come?" Marcus asked, stepping inside. She gave a faint smile. "You think you're the first fool who tried to fix more than machines?" Inside, the space looked like a scrapyard, fused with a command center. Holomaps covered one wall, marking patrol routes and restricted zones. People worked in silence, humans, Kirani, and others, piecing together tech from discarded parts. The air vibrated with quiet urgency. "Welcome to the Deep Line," Lyra said. "We help those who the system forgets, and now apparently we help you." Marcus scanned the room. "All this time, right under our feet." Lyra nodded. "Where else would hope survive? The streets above are too loud for truth to breathe." A tall Kirani woman approached, her skin shimmering like wet stone. "You're the human who built the med unit?" she asked. "I am," Marcus replied. "How you saved a child," she said. "That makes you family here." He swallowed hard. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because no one else would." "That's exactly why it matters," she said. Lyra handed him a flask of water. "We've been watching the patrols tighten the net for weeks. Someone's selling information. That's how they found you." Marcus frowned. "So, what now? They'll trace my tech." "It's only a matter of time." "That's why you're here," Lyra said. "We move people like you before the system swallows them, but you've got a choice: disappear or fight." He looked around. The others worked with quiet determination, repairing drones, printing IDs, reprogramming med units for alien physiology. It wasn't chaos. It was survival made into rhythm, a song of defiance humming beneath the city. "What kind of fight?" Marcus asked. "The kind that builds, not destroys," Lyra said. "We share tech, medicine, knowledge, quietly. Each time someone's healed, each time a family escapes, we win." Marcus thought of Tallow and Sira. "If I leave, what happens to them?" Lyra's voice softened. "The Deep Line protects its own. The boy's safe for now, but if you stay in the open, you'll bring the patrols right to his door." Marcus clenched his fists. "I can't just hide." "Then don't," said the Kirani woman. "Help us rebuild the network's field systems. You understand human tech better than anyone. We've lost too many engineers to the raids." He hesitated. "If I help, it'll draw attention." Lyra smirked. "It always does." "But some attention is worth the risk." A quiet moment stretched between them. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels, a drumbeat began, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat. Others joined in, tapping wrenches on pipes, creating a rhythm that filled the air. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Our signal," Lyra said. "Every time we start a new operation, we play the old songs. Reminds us who we are." Marcus listened. The rhythm pulsed through him, steady, defiant, alive. He finally nodded. "All right, I'll stay. Show me what needs fixing." Lyra's smile returned, small but fierce. "Good. Because the world above thinks it owns mercy. Let's prove it wrong." And as the drums echoed through the dark, Marcus felt something he hadn't in years. Not safety, not certainty, but purpose. The kind that didn't need permission. Weeks passed in the tunnels beneath New Dakar. Marcus worked from dawn until exhaustion blurred the hours. The Deep Line had turned into his new reality, a rhythm of coded transmissions, stolen supplies, and whispers that moved faster than the patrols. He'd rebuilt their network infrastructure, strengthened the encryption nodes, and helped recalibrate med units for alien use. It was dangerous, illegal, and for the first time in years he felt alive. Yet even as progress surrounded him, his thoughts returned constantly to Tallow and Sira. He hadn't seen them since the night of the raid. Every time the air vents rattled or footsteps echoed above, he wondered if the patrols had found them. One morning, while Marcus adjusted a transmitter coil, the door to the safe house opened. Lyra's voice called softly, "Marcus, you've got a visitor." He turned, wiping grease from his hands, and froze. Tallow stood in the doorway. He was thinner, older somehow, his eyes harder than before. Behind him, the faint hum of the city filtered through the tunnels. "You found us?" Marcus said quietly. Talo nodded. "Mama Lyra did. She said you were here." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus smiled, a little uncertain. "How's your sister?" "She's alive," Talo said. "The medicine machine still works. You saved her." Relief hit Marcus like a wave. "That's good to hear." Talo stepped closer. "But things are worse now. The patrols don't just search, they take people. Anyone who helped us is gone. We hid for days in the lower shafts." Marcus's stomach tightened. "You shouldn't have come here. It's not safe." Talo met his eyes. "Nowhere is safe, but I didn't come to hide. I came to help." Lyra leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "The boy means it," she said. "He's been moving supplies for the network. Small things. But he's got courage." Marcus looked at him, truly looked. Talo's hands were rough, his clothes worn, but there was resolve in him that hadn't been there before. "You don't owe me this," Marcus said. Talo shook his head. "You gave us more than medicine. You showed me people still care. That's why I'm here." The words hit deep. Marcus wanted to argue, to tell the boy he'd done enough, but he couldn't. The determination in Talo's face mirrored the one that had once lived in his own. "All right," Marcus said finally. "If you're staying, you're not just running errands. You learn. You fix things. You build." Talo's lips curved into a small smile. "That's all I've ever done." For the next few hours, Marcus taught him the basics of circuitry, how to bridge damaged relays, how to reroute power flow. The boy learned fast. His alien physiology gave him sharper reflexes, steadier hands. Every motion was deliberate, born of necessity. At one point, Talo paused, looking at the glowing schematics. "You think the law will ever change?" Marcus's answer came slow. "Laws don't change because governments decide to be kind. They change because people stop obeying them." Talo nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe that's what we're doing." Lyra chuckled softly from across the room. "The boy talks like a prophet already." When the day ended, Marcus found himself walking Talo toward the tunnel exit. "Be careful out there," he said. "You're part of something now, but it'll only mean something if you live to see it." Talo looked up at him. "You used to fix machines. Now you fix people." Marcus laughed quietly. "I'm still learning how." As Talo disappeared into the dim light, Marcus felt both pride and fear twist inside him. The boy had become more than a survivor. He was a spark, and in a city built on silence, sparks were what started revolutions. New Dakar was louder than ever. Patrol skiffs hovered over the market squares, their sirens blending with the sounds of trade, music, and life struggling not to collapse. The government called it increased security. The people called it fear. Marcus worked through the night with the deep line, reprogramming transmitters and cloaking signals, but every time he heard engines overhead, his chest tightened. He knew it was only a matter of time before the law caught up to him. What he didn't expect was how quickly that time would come. It started with a whisper. Lyra entered the safe house with a look Marcus had never seen before, sharp, guarded, afraid. "They know your name," she said quietly. Marcus froze mid-motion. "What do you mean, they know?" "Not just the patrols, the Central Bureau. Someone's feeding them details. Where you work, who you helped, the unit you built." He felt the floor shift beneath him. "They'll go after Talo." "They'll go after everyone," Lyra said. "That's how they make examples." Marcus pressed a hand to his forehead, trying to think. "We have to move the network, hide the people, burn the data." "Already started," she said. "But you, Marcus, you need to disappear." "I can't," he said immediately. "If I vanish, they'll still find them. I can't protect them from a hole in the ground." Zeke stepped out from the back, arms folded, his face grim. "She's right, man. They're not playing anymore. You've done enough. Let the rest of us take it from here." Marcus turned to him, anger flaring. "Done enough? You think this ends because I walk away? This city doesn't forget who breaks its rules. If I hide, they'll just pick a new target." Zeke exhaled slowly. "Then what? You gonna hand yourself over?" You really think martyrdom fixes systems? Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked around the safe house, the glow of the consoles, the quiet hum of machinery, the faces of people who had chosen hope over safety. They were all waiting for him to decide. Lyra's voice softened. Compassion costs, baby, and you've already paid more than most. He met her gaze. Then maybe it's time to finish the payment. Tallow stepped forward from the corner where he had been silently watching. No, he said, voice trembling but clear. You can't. They'll kill you. Marcus crouched to meet the boy's eyes. Listen to me. If I go, it buys you time. Time to move your sister, to keep this network alive. I can help, Tallow said desperately. We can both go underground, Marcus shook his head. If you want to help me, keep fighting, build, teach, don't waste what you've been given. The boy's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't argue again. The room fell into silence. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, or maybe it was the sound of another raid. No one could tell anymore. Zeke finally spoke. You sure about this? Marcus smiled faintly. Never been sure about anything in my life, guess it's about time. Lyra handed him a small data crystal. Everything we've built, names, routes, medicine codes, if they take you, make sure they don't take this. Marcus tucked it inside his jacket. They won't. He walked toward the exit, the tunnel lights flickering above him. Every step felt heavier, but his resolve sharpened with each one. When he reached the surface, the night was alive with sirens and light. Patrols were already swarming the streets, voices echoing through loudspeakers. Marcus took one breath of the city's electric air and whispered to himself, if compassion has a price, let them see what it's worth. And as the patrol lights found him, Marcus didn't run. He raised his hands, not in surrender, but in defiance. The news of Marcus's arrest spread through New Dakar before dawn. No official broadcast mentioned his name, but everyone in the lower districts knew. A human mechanic had been taken for helping aliens. The patrols thought it would scare people into silence. Instead, it ignited something the city hadn't felt in years. Mama Lyra stood at her stall, her hands shaking as she tied her shawl. They think they can cage compassion, she muttered. They forget where we come from. By midday, word had reached every block, every workshop, every hidden corner of the deep line. The city pulsed with quiet anger. Zeke returned to the tunnels, his face grim but determined. They've got Marcus in central detention, he said. They'll make an example of him. Lyra's jaw tightened. Then let's give them a different example. The movement began not with shouting but with rhythm. The people of New Dakar had always spoken in rhythm, through drums, through footsteps, through heartbeats that refused to stop. That afternoon, the first sound came from a young girl pounding on an overturned crate. Others joined her, striking pipes and metal plates. 1,000 small beats began to echo through the streets, carrying a single message. We are still here. Tallow heard it from the shadows near the old market, where he and Sira had been hiding. His sister, now stronger, clutched his hand. Is it them? She whispered. He nodded. It's everyone. The drumming spread like wildfire. Humans, Kirani, and others poured into the open streets, faces uncovered, hands raised. Vendors left their stalls, workers left the factories, even patrol officers hesitated as the sound grew. Mama Lyra led them through the main avenue, her shawl shimmering with embedded light, her voice loud enough to reach the towers above. You call us illegal for helping each other, she shouted. But who built your cities? Who keeps your skyships flying? Who fixes your broken machines when your laws fail you? The crowd roared back. We do. Then hear us, she said, her voice trembling with power. If mercy is a crime, then we are all guilty. The patrol lines formed, black and rigid, but they didn't move. They weren't ready for this kind of rebellion, one without weapons, one made of sound and truth. Zeke climbed onto a delivery drone, raising a makeshift loudspeaker. You hear that hum? He yelled. That's the sound of every man and woman who's done being told compassion is illegal. The air shook with the crowd's response. Some chanted Marcus's name, others called for justice. but most simply kept the rhythm, hands against walls, feet against the ground, drums echoing like thunder. In the central square, a group of young Kirani children held up a holographic banner that shimmered with the words, "One beat, one blood." The message spread through the networks faster than the authorities could suppress it. Within hours, neighboring districts joined in, their streets alive with light and noise. Lyra stood beside Zeke, watching as the patrol commander stepped forward, his voice amplified through static. "Disperse immediately. This gathering is unauthorized." Lyra didn't flinch. So was every act of freedom. For a moment, the commander hesitated. The crowd's chant filled the silence, rolling like a wave through the city. The rhythm was unstoppable now. Talo pushed his way through the mass of people, Syrah beside him. "We have to keep it going," he told her. "We can't stop." She smiled faintly. "Then don't." As the suns began to set, the light hit the towers and turned them red and gold. The drums kept pounding, their rhythm steady and defiant. Somewhere in the distance, the prison gates trembled under the sound, and in that heartbeat of unity, the city remembered something it had forgotten. No system, no patrol, no wall could hold back the sound of people rising together. By nightfall, New Dakar was a storm of sound. The streets pulsed with chants and drums, the air electric with defiance. The authorities shut down public channels, jammed the networks, and flooded the city with warning drones. But the people refused to fall silent. Every rooftop, every alley, every window echoed with the rhythm of resistance. Deep in the tunnels, Zeke worked feverishly over a console. His fingers danced across the keys, sweat dripping down his temple. "If they shut us out, we go through the back door," he muttered. Mama Lyra stood behind him, arms crossed, her voice steady despite the chaos above. "Make it count, boy. The world's listening even if they pretend not to." Zeke smirked. "Oh, they'll hear us." "All of them." He connected the last wire and looked to Talo, who stood nearby with a portable mic clutched tight in his hand. The boy's heart pounded. "Are you sure I should do this?" Lyra nodded slowly. "You've seen what they've done to your people, to ours. Tonight you speak for all of us. You've got the truth in your voice, child. Let them feel it." Talo swallowed hard. His reflection flickered in the screen, thin, pale, scared, but burning with purpose. "All right," he whispered. Zeke flipped the switch. The lights dimmed, then the console glowed red. "You're live in 5, 4, 3. Talo took a deep breath and began. "My name is Talo Kiran. I'm speaking from the lower districts of New Dakar. You don't know me, but you know people like me. You've walked past us in the markets, ignored us in the streets. You've seen us cleaning your doors and thought we were just trying to earn scraps. But we were trying to live." His voice wavered, then grew stronger. "A human man named Marcus Rains helped me when no one else would. He broke your laws to save my sister's life. For that you locked him away, but you can't cage kindness. You can't silence truth." Zeke's fingers tightened on the controls, sending the signal through every hijacked frequency in the sector. Across the city, holoscreens flickered, cutting through propaganda feeds. Marcus's name appeared in glowing letters over his face, an image taken from an old ID card. Talo kept speaking, the words pouring out like something bigger than himself. "They call it illegal to help us. But what's illegal about mercy? What's dangerous about love? Marcus didn't just save my sister, he saved the part of me that still believed people could be good. And if that's a crime, then I guess I'm guilty too." Above ground, the crowd stopped marching and turned toward the glowing screens. In every district, his voice filled the air, clear, trembling, unfiltered. Even the patrols paused, uncertain, as their comms filled with his message. In the control towers, officials barked orders to shut the transmission down, but the signal had already spread through hundreds of hidden relays. Lyra leaned closer to the mic and spoke softly beside Talo. "New Dakar, hear us. You are not divided. You are one people, human Kirani, all who believe in life over fear. Don't let them make you forget that." Zeke hit the final sequence, and a recording of Marcus's voice played, something he had captured from an old workshop log. "If you're hearing this," Marcus's voice said, Remember, machines can break, systems can fail, but compassion, real compassion, builds itself back stronger every time. For a long moment, the entire city was silent. Then, from somewhere in the lower districts, someone began to drum again. Another joined, then another. The rhythm spread louder than before, echoing Marcus's words. Zeke exhaled shakily. Broadcast done, they'll trace it soon. Lyra smiled faintly. Let them. The message is already in their air. Tallow looked up at the glowing map of New Dakar and whispered, He'll hear us. Wherever they've taken him, he'll know. And as the sound of the drums swelled, the city didn't just listen, it remembered. The city of New Dakar had always thrived on chaos, on the push and pull between its towering spires and its crumbling streets, between its iron laws and its hidden hearts. But in the days following the broadcast, something had shifted. It was as if the city itself had taken a breath, held it, and then released it all at once. The drumming didn't stop, the chant didn't fade. Every corner, every alleyway was alive with the sound of defiance, of hope, of unity. It was a quiet revolution that could not be ignored, and it was spreading faster than the authorities could suppress it. Marcus, though locked away in a cell, could feel the ripples of it. He had known something would come, had known that the city's pulse couldn't be contained forever, but even he had underestimated the power of what they had started, what Tallow had started. His heart had once beaten for machines, for the simplicity of gears and wires and circuits. But now, as he sat in the cold, silent cell, he understood that there was a deeper, truer rhythm to this world, the pulse of a people who refused to be silenced. The guards were still tense, their faces tight with the unease of knowing they had lost control, but they didn't know what to do. The usual routine was in disarray. The central bureaus couldn't give a clear answer. The sound of the streets had reached even the highest towers, and the very air in the prison felt heavier now, charged with something else. He could hear voices in the hallways outside, muffled conversations among the guards, but something was different. Their usual harshness, their sharp commands had softened. The once unquestioned power of their presence now seemed uncertain, like it had been punctured by the force of something they hadn't been able to predict. "Are we just going to sit here and wait?" one of the guards muttered to another, his voice hushed. This isn't normal." The other guard didn't respond, but Marcus could hear the doubt in the silence between them. He had always known that power could be brittle. It was the belief in it that made it seem strong, not the strength itself. He stood up and walked toward the small window of his cell, the bars cold beneath his fingertips. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, the glow of the horizon flickering with the light of an ongoing protest. But there was something else. Far off in the distance beyond the city limits, Marcus saw something he hadn't expected. Movement. A procession of people, not just from the lower districts, but from every corner of the city, were making their way toward the central complex. They were armed with nothing but their voices, their banners, and the same beat that had carried them this far. He could feel it, what they were doing. It was more than just a protest. It was a reckoning. In that moment, Marcus knew they had won. Not the battle. Not yet. But the war had shifted. The law, the authority that had once seemed invincible, was no longer a wall they couldn't break through. It was just a barrier, and one they had already begun to crack. His pulse quickened. For the first time in days, he felt hope. Not the fragile hope of a dream, but the unshakable certainty of something that was already happening. The doors of his cell swung open with a sharp clang. A guard stepped inside, his face tense but uncertain. "They're coming," the guard said, as if he didn't quite know what he was supposed to do. "I don't know what's going to happen, but they're coming for you." Marcus didn't need to ask who they were. He already knew. "I'm ready," he said softly, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline racing through his veins. "But it's not just me. It's all of us." The guard didn't move, staring at Marcus for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and left. The door clanged shut behind him. Marcus let out a slow breath, pressing his palm against the cold wall. He knew what was coming. He had prepared for it in his mind, had imagined every possible outcome. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the sound of the people, Taylor's voice, Lyra's words, the drums that had shaken the foundations of their world. They were coming, and this time they wouldn't be stopped. The morning after the protests, the city of New Dakar didn't wake with its usual noise. The air was still, heavy with the weight of what had happened. The streets, once echoing with chants and drums, were littered with signs and banners, silent reminders of a people who had found their voice. Marcus stood in the open courtyard of the detention complex, surrounded by guards who no longer looked like guards. Their weapons hung loosely at their sides, their faces uncertain. The uprising hadn't ended with violence, but with something more powerful, refusal. The city had stopped obeying. A convoy from the Central Council had arrived at dawn. Among them was a woman Marcus didn't recognize, a governor's aide, crisp uniform, silver hair braided tight. She stepped forward, her tone neutral but cautious. "Mr. Rains," she began, "the council has reviewed your case. The circumstances surrounding your arrest have changed." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Changed how?" "The governor has ordered your release," she said. "And the immediate suspension of the interspecies aid restrictions, effective immediately." The words hit him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "So the law finally remembered what it means to be human?" he asked. Her jaw tightened. "Don't mistake this for mercy. It's politics. The world is watching." Marcus smiled faintly. "Then let them." She turned away and the gate opened. For the first time in weeks, Marcus stepped beyond the walls that had held him. The light hit his face, warm and real. Outside, people waited, humans, Kirani, others, faces filled with cautious hope. When they saw him, the murmur began. Then applause, then cheers that rippled through the crowd like electricity. Tallow was there, standing at the front, his sister beside him. Siru's skin had regained its soft glow, her eyes bright again. When Marcus saw them, his chest tightened. He walked forward, and Tallow met him halfway. "You made it," Tallow said. "So did you," Marcus replied. The boy smiled, and for a moment, the noise of the city faded. Mama Lyra pushed through the crowd, tears streaking her face. "Look at you," she said, grabbing Marcus's hands. "Causing all this trouble and calling it justice." He chuckled. "You told me to break the rules." "I said bend them, not shatter them," she replied, laughing through her tears. Behind them, Zeke approached, his arm in a sling, a tired grin on his face. "You still owe me a drink, old man," Marcus nodded. "Make it 2. One for freedom, one for survival." The laughter spread through the crowd, light and healing. But as Marcus looked around, he saw more than celebration. He saw possibility. The walls that had divided humans and aliens for so long were beginning to crumble, replaced by something fragile but real. Trust. In the following weeks, change swept through New Dakar. The deep line came into the open, no longer a whisper in the dark, but a foundation for rebuilding. Engineers, medics, teachers, human and Kirani alike, worked side by side, repairing what the system had broken. Marcus opened his workshop again, but this time, it wasn't just a repair shop, it was a training center. Young people came to learn, to build, to create. He taught them everything he knew, not just about machines, but about courage, empathy, and the strength it takes to defy what's wrong. One evening, as the suns dipped below the skyline, Tallow stopped by with Sira. She carried a small hollow frame wrapped in cloth. When Marcus unwrapped it, he froze. It was a portrait, painted in vivid color, of the 3 of them standing before the workshop, light in their eyes, the city alive behind them. Sira smiled. Mama Lyra said, "Every new dawn deserves a memory." Marcus stared at the painting, his throat tight. "Then we'll make sure this one lasts." Outside, the drums began again, not of protest, but of celebration. The beat was slower now, steadier, like the pulse of something reborn, and as the suns sank below the towers, New Dakar glowed, not with neon, but with hope. The sound of drums filled the streets once again, but this time it was different. It wasn't a signal of rebellion, but of unity, of a community that had found its pulse again. The air was thick with the scent of rain, the city slick with light and life. New Dakar felt different. Marcus stood at the doorway of his workshop, looking out over the streets that had once felt like a maze, but now somehow felt like home. The walls of the city, once so towering and oppressive, now felt smaller, more connected. The people had changed it, had reshaped it, brick by brick, beat by beat. The door frame creaked as someone approached. Marcus turned to see Talo, now taller, his shoulders a little broader, but still with the same determination in his eyes. Behind him, Sira walked slowly, her hand on his arm, a soft smile lighting her face. "You know," Marcus said, his voice warm but tired, "I never thought I'd see the day when this place felt like a new beginning." Talo nodded, looking out over the street. "Neither did I," he said, "but it's real now. People are building it with their own hands." Sira smiled up at Marcus. "It's funny," she said softly, "how you start out thinking you're helping and then somewhere along the way you realize you're being helped too." Marcus laughed gently, a sound that still felt strange on his lips. "I suppose that's how it always goes." Talo glanced at the ground, then back at Marcus. "You're still the one who fixed everything," he said quietly. "You started it." Marcus shifted, uncomfortable with the weight of the words. "I didn't fix anything, I just helped people remember what they already knew." He paused, his gaze shifting toward the street again. "It's all of you. Everyone who believed in this, who fought for it. This is your victory too." Sira stepped forward, holding out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Marcus took it, unwrapping it carefully. Inside was a small wooden carving, an intricate piece that depicted a city in the distance, with people gathered around a fire, their hands raised in unity. The carving was simple but striking. It was the city, but it was also something more, a symbol of hope, of new beginnings. "From all of us," Sira said, her voice low but full of meaning. "To remind you of how it started, on the doorstep." Marcus swallowed hard, his throat tight. "It's beautiful," he whispered. He looked up at the two of them, his heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "I thought I was the one who was going to fix the world, but it turns out it's the world that fixed me." Talo shook his head. "We all fix each other, Marcus." "That's the point." The drums began to sound louder now, closer, the rhythm echoing off the walls. People were gathering in the streets again, joining together, hands in the air, celebrating what they had built. A sense of unity that hadn't been there before filled the air, something stronger than just a protest. It was a promise to stand together no matter the cost. Marcus stepped out into the street, Talo and Sira by his side. The crowd was already there, waiting, their eyes alight with the same fire that had started this all. They weren't just fighting for a better tomorrow anymore. They had built that tomorrow with their own hands, and now they were standing in it. He raised his hand, not in a salute, but as a simple gesture of connection. The people began to cheer, the sound rolling through the streets like thunder. It wasn't just for Marcus anymore, it was for all of them. And as the drums continued to echo through the city, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because the world was fixed, but because they had learned together how to live through it. The doors of New Dakar had opened wide, and nothing would ever close them again.